They found her at 3 in the morning, dancing alone in the marketplace. Frau Trophia moved like a puppet with invisible strings, her feet striking the cobblestones in rhythm, her arms swaying to music no one else could hear. Her face was blank, eyes wide and unblinking, reflecting the pale moonlight. When her husband tried to stop her, tried to hold her still, she twisted from his grasp and continued. Step, turn, step, turn. The sound of her shoes against stone echoed through the empty square like a heartbeat that wouldn't stop. She had been dancing for 6 hours. The year was 1518. Strasbourg stood as a prosperous city within the Holy Roman Empire, its streets narrow and winding, its wooden houses leaning together like old friends sharing secrets. But that summer, something had shifted in the air. The previous winter had been brutal. Famine had taken many. Disease had taken more. The survivors whispered that God had abandoned them, that the saints no longer listened to their prayers. Frau Trophia danced through the first day, then the second. Her feet bled through her shoes, leaving dark prints on the stones. Crowds gathered to watch, horrified as she spun and stepped and swayed without rest, without food, without sleep. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her dress grew dark with sweat. Still, she could not stop. On the third day, others joined her.
At first, it was just one more, a man named Herr Jose, who stumbled into the square and began to dance alongside Frau Trophea. Then a woman, then 2 children. Within a week, more than 30 people moved through the streets in their terrible choreography. They danced in the marketplace, in the churchyard, along the river. Their movements were frantic, desperate, as if they were trying to escape something that lived inside their own bodies. The sound of it haunted those who remained still, hundreds of feet striking stone, day and night without pause, a rhythm that never broke, never slowed. Some dancers wept as they moved, others laughed, high, broken sounds that didn't belong to sane minds. Their clothes hung in tatters, their skin bruised and tore. Some collapsed from exhaustion, lying in twisted heaps on the ground, only to rise minutes later and continue dancing. The physicians came first. They examined the dancers, checked their pulses, looked into their vacant eyes. Hot blood, they declared, an imbalance of humors. They prescribed bloodletting, but the dancers wouldn't stay still long enough for the leeches to attach. The doctors left, shaking their heads, murmuring about phenomena beyond their understanding. The priests arrived next, carrying crosses and holy water, chanting prayers of exorcism. They called it divine punishment, a curse sent by Saint Vitus for the sins of the city. The dancers spun past them, unhearing. When the priests tried to form a barrier with their bodies, the dancers simply moved around them, as if guided by instinct towards some unseen destination. Families begged their loved ones to stop. Wives clutched husbands. Mothers screamed for children. But the dancers' eyes remained empty, focused on something no one else could see. It was as if they had left themselves behind, leaving only bodies that moved to a song played by invisible hands. dancers. By the end of the month, more than 400 people danced through Strasbourg's streets.
The city council grew desperate. They hired musicians, believing that if the dancers could exhaust themselves properly, the madness would break. Guild halls were opened, stages were built in the squares, professional dancers were brought in to lead the afflicted through proper steps, proper forms. The logic was simple: let them dance it out. The musicians played, the healthy danced alongside the sick, trying to guide them, trying to tire them into stillness. It only made things worse. The music seemed to feed the plague. The dancers moved faster, wilder, their bodies jerking and spinning with renewed frenzy. More people joined. The sound of feet on stone became deafening, a thunder that rolled through the city day and night. The air filled with the smell of sweat and blood and something else, something sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. People began to die. Hearts gave out. Bones broke from the constant impact. Dancers collapsed and did not rise again, lying in the streets where they fell, their limbs still twitching in phantom rhythm. On the worst night, when the moon hung full and heavy over the city, every street was filled with dancers. The sound of their movement created a single, unified pulse, the heartbeat of something vast and terrible. Those who watched from windows said later that the dancers moved in patterns, forming shapes in the squares and alleys, symbols, signs, letters in a language that hurt to look at. In the silence between footfalls, some claimed they heard another sound, laughter maybe, or music that came from beneath the earth, rising through the stones. By morning, the streets were littered with the collapsed. The survivors stared at their own feet with terror, waiting to feel the urge to move. Then, as suddenly as it began, the plague lifted. The dancers stopped. They collapsed where they stood, confused and exhausted, with no memory of the weeks they'd spent in that hellish choreography. The city buried its dead and tried to forget. The official records called it a case of mass hysteria, natural causes, hot blood and summer madness. The church declared days of fasting and prayer. Life returned slowly to normal. But sometimes, even now, visitors to Strasbourg report strange things. The sound of footsteps on cobblestones late at night when the streets are empty. Shadows that move in rhythm to music no one else can hear. And occasionally, just occasionally, someone will stop in the old marketplace, frozen, their foot tapping against the ancient stones, testing the rhythm, remembering the steps, waiting for the music to begin again.